Hello, everybody. A warm welcome to Wisdom from North. My name is Jannicke, and today I have a Norwegian guest on the show called Anne Gjeitanger. Anne is an author and a former publisher, and she lives in Damanhur in Italy. Now, Anne has something that's called clear hearing. That means that she can tune into frequencies and hear other beings communicate with her. 2 years ago, the very Mary Magdalene approached her with a strong message, especially to the women of today. This resulted in the channeled book, Pistis Maria, the legend after Mary Magdalene, a book that presents a completely different story than we are used to from the Bible. Anne Gjeitanger, much welcome to Wisdom from North.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here with you.
And I've been very much looking forward to this because we're going to speak about Mary Magdalene today. And Mary Magdalene is a controversial figure. I've been doing some research on this because I didn't know too much about the Bible when I read parts of your book. And what I found out was that she has been mentioned around 13 times in the Bible. And that there were different Marys actually mentioned in the Bible, and that Pope Gregor in 595, he had a preach where he said that this is the same Mary. And the church became institutionalized, and they made Mary into this sinful woman, this prostitute, and that has lingered for 2,000 years now. And in this book that you've written, we hear a totally different story of Mary Magdalene. And you have been channeling this. And I'm wondering if you can say a little bit about how she came to you, how you are perceiving her, in what way.
The first time she came to me was 10 years ago. I wrote a different book, a channeled book that more than anything told the story of the apostle and the disciple Peter. And then after he had told his story, then Jesus and Mary Magdalene came in to add their things. And I was terrified. I was absolutely horrified because I thought I was imagining it. And yet I knew that I had to write it down. And it was interesting because I also did some tests. I could stop in the middle of a sentence in one evening and then to see what would happen. And then I would continue the same phrase when I sat down to do it the next day. And so I know her from then as a voice that comes to speak and with a message and with this call to all women of today that it is time for us to stand up, and that compared to Jesus, who has had his role for about 2,000 years of history on earth, she is now the active one. She is the one who moves us to change things, to seek solutions for a better world. So she's somehow eager to come forth through any woman who's ready and wanting to take up this mission.
But if you can explain a little bit more about how you hear her, because you hear her as a voice, right? I'm just trying to imagine how that feels like, hearing all of a sudden a voice speak to you in your head.
Well, there are clairvoyant people, and I'm not, but I have a clear hearing, which means that I have become accustomed to being able to listen and being able to tune in on frequencies so that I can hear them communicating to me, either plants, animals, other people who can communicate one thing from a part of themselves that is different from another part of themselves. I can communicate with parts of me because we're not only one, we're many personalities inside one being. And some of them are wise and some of them are not so wise. So when it comes to also channeling or communicating with higher entities or higher forces, then obviously you need to find out, is what this that they are telling me, is it wise? Is it something that it's worth listening to? Because out there are many things that you can pick up also with this kind of clear audience, clear hearing. And I have been I've become accustomed to training myself to find out, is this worth pursuing? Is this worth publishing? And in this case, I've learned so much from the process that I've had to say, well, it's too much for me to have found it up, because there is this ego part of me also who would have fear, who would be afraid of not doing it in the purest possible way, etc. And also of the fact that how is this possible? Just the same question as you're asking me. But I have been intrigued by what she's telling, by the knowledge that she's conveying, so that I have come to trust that there is a mission in me for this to come out. The first time she came for this book was almost 2 years ago, and I thought, but haven't we had enough of this? Because I haven't read all of them, but I have been following the fact that there are many Magdalene channelings, many books that speaks of her. There is the Danish writer Lars Muhl, who's had a great success with his trilogy dedicated to her, or to the feminine part of the spiritual process that we're in. And I thought, another one, you know,
And me?
Well, yeah, and me. How come? I thought we'd done this also because I thought somehow that I had been looking into the female part of the mystery for some time already, and that I knew all about it, etc. And then we started all over again with something that went much more in depth. That's how this work has been to me.
How did she present herself to you? Was it like, hello, Anna, now you're going to write this book. It's going to take 2 years. Or did you just start talking?
I have had difficulty remembering it. I remember when I realized that this is what is going on, and that I had to start doing some research, and that I went off from where I live in Italy when I live in Italy, I am in the north of that country, and so that I could easily go off on weekends to France, where I understood that she had been to. And so I started doing research, and as I moved about, I would write day and night, and there would be a certain resistance for the reasons that I just told you. And on the other hand, a curiosity and also little by little an enthusiasm about getting to know this story that is so different and so much richer in emotion and information than I imagined it to be. She is not saint or light in this version that I've taken down. She's a woman with real feelings, and I somehow took to the idea that, yes, of course, if you are a human being living a life on earth, that is how you experience it. It is, even Jesus had emotions. It's not that he went through his life like a saint. And so looking into what these emotions were, I also felt them quite strongly, so that I felt somehow to have access to her memory, which then became something that I could not say, that I could not put away, because it would be there anyway. It would be it would be there to color my experiences.
So let's talk about what she's saying in the book. She apparently, it seems like to me, that they were meant to be a couple. They were meant to work together. And she started going to these mystery schools to prepare to meet him. Can you talk a little bit about that school and what she learned there and what a mystery school is?
The mystery school concept dates back to Egypt, as far as we know in our modern history. This story includes a past that goes way back onto Atlantis, and the project that these two persons, Jesus and Mary Magdalene, started in Atlantis. It was what has continued up until today, where his part was not successful, but to a certain extent in their life together as these two historical persons, whereas her nor did she have the conditions for bringing her project to a good end, nor did she do it, because she fell into the trap of falling in love with Jesus.
She wasn't supposed to do that? Or?
She wasn't supposed to lose her connection with the divine in herself. which is what she was trained to experience and trained to be able to achieve through the mystery school that she attended on Mount Carmel, in where they used, according to this version, there was some kind of monastery there, an Essene monastery, where she was taught by female teachers, and they would teach her to more than written knowledge. She would have access to how to control your energies, your vital energies, which is something that in the alchemic tradition of the mystery schools, also in Egypt and in other phases of human history, has been researched. It's the way you can train or support or reinforce your energy system to achieve, we want these things that we all want, enlightenment, etc., but also immortality. Oh. So her, which is a divine characteristic, right? So both to herself and in her own mission, she would train her control of her energies, developing vital energies, reinforcing them in a certain direction, so as to be able to contact the divine within her and be a channel to it. This is what she was trained to. And then she was also trained to do this for Jesus as she met him, or Jeshua, or whatever name you would prefer, as he needed someone to support or reinforce his vital energies for the same process of achieving immortality, so that in fact he would not be lost when he died as a human being, but that this trace that he was somehow walking up energetically on behalf of mankind would continue to exist. What he did was to open up our heart chakra dimension, the idea that we can be in a non-combative relationship with our fellow being, which is a heart chakra vibration. That is what we also want today, be in our heart, be able to encompass, be able to be there for our neighbor. That was one aspect of his mission. The other one was this conveying to people that they are much more than they believe, and that there is the possibility of being a multidimensional being also whilst on earth, as he was, and to go back to an immortal state of being after a physical death on earth. And she was there to help him achieve that energetically.
And they came from another planet, right?
Well, we all do.
We all do.
Yeah. Or many of us do. There aren't that many people who are native earthly beings.
But they were kind of avatars?
In the sense that they were conscious of being messengers for the divine, conscious of being envoys for the Great Council. They had a consciousness that that taught them and that had them work and act according to a mission. In a way, I like to think that we all are, but we tend to be engulfed in the oblivion of being born on Earth, because we tend to forget. Some people are able to reawaken their memory much faster, and also to be aware of being born on Earth from somewhere else. And obviously they will have more easily access to a different kind of perspective on what they're doing here, on what they're, and let alone forget that they're here on a mission. So what she explains is that she had this consciousness of being on Earth on a mission, whereas he probably had much more. He was better connected to his memory and to his divine origins, or his divine parts. So and then he was also a male, which at that time made a huge difference. She did not have any possibility really to live her life as a free woman.
But what I'm wondering about, because she's so brutally honest in this book, I mean, she's really suffering. Why didn't she kind of get more help? I don't know, from angels or from spirit guides. I mean, if she did have this divinity in her, she knew her mission. it seems like it was so hard still. And I'm thinking, wouldn't she know from another perspective, from another dimension, how it was going to be on the planet? Because it seemed like it was a failed project in many ways.
Yes. What she did was to make sure that it did not only fail. There were both actions taken, and she explains how this was also in accordance with other entities, the council, which she names it, in other dimensions. His death has certainly been remembered. We all know that there was a Jesus coming down to earth, doing some things. That is something that they ensured the remembrance of. Her life is being remembered too, and what she did throughout the last period of her life after the death of Jesus, which was devastating to her, and also the physical conditions under which she lived, the fact that she was so much so attached to him, all these difficulties that created suffering, yes, and the suppression of female liberty, yes, there is much suffering. What she was anyway able to do was to do that walk in southern France and southern Europe, Spain also, and some parts of a little further up in France.
After his death?
After his death. She went there for two reasons, and the one reason was to anchor the memory of herself, her own energy, which is why, presumably, you can go to these parts today and you will feel her presence, which many pilgrims do. Modern pilgrims of today, they will go there and they will encounter Mary Magdalene. And what she did, and there have been many myths, many parts of the God Templars, the Templar Cathars. There are many myths, legends connected to her in this area, because many people have met her in the astral, in the etheric layers. And she did this on purpose. That is what she explains in this version, that she walked this distance and these distances, these miles, for years, to anchor her own presence on earth, so that one day it would be remembered that there was a woman too, which at the time of Jesus it was too early. She could not possibly succeed. The other part was to anchor the possibility for the Grail to be in contact with the human beings again, which it can only be where there is a certain interest for the divine. And that is, as the Grail is a force too. It is not an object, but it can be connected to or contained in objects like the chalice, the cup. And so we have many myths and legends connected to her and the Grail, and many theories in modern novels and everywhere, what the Grail really is and where she really went and how many children she had and that sort of thing. Due to her energy being present in many layers, but not necessarily with a physical reference.
Yeah, because many are saying that she is the Grail, or the child is the Grail.
Yes.
So you think the Grail is kind of an energy or a consciousness?
Again, the Grail is an energy that was linked to the mankind at the time of Atlantis. Then mankind lost many of its what was then normal faculties, which now has become paranormal faculties. We lost parts of our divine. We were lobotomized, and were taken away from us many possibilities of acting out a potential in many ways. And so the Grail did not fall. So it would be and continue to be a force of a certain dimension, and it is not something that I'm an expert on, because this is a mystery too, what the Grail really is. But it is certainly a force that has gone through that has been connected to the history of mankind in various ways and connected to different items. So the one symbol, and the one that we tend to know because it has been the symbol for the past 2,000 years, is the chalice, the Grail cup, that has its origin as a myth from the time of the death of Jesus. And then, yeah.
We're going to do a second interview after this about Damanhur and about Atlantis, and so it's all connected, and that's an interesting story as well. But let's go back to Jesus and Mary's relationship. To me, I felt it was very logical that they came down together because you have the yin-yang and the femininity and the masculinity. Can you talk a little bit about her main message? Because apparently she's coming down now because she has a message that it seems like it's very important to her to come out with this, and that we women start working on or opening up or working on our female energies in a way.
I think her message can be summarized in the way the Dalai Lama does it, and he says that the Western women are the ones to save the world, and they have to do it, and they will. Which is logical, because it is the Western woman who in this day and age has the possibility to, because she's above survival level, whereas women in other parts of the world are still suffering from exactly the same kind of oppression, the same kind of not being heard, the same kind of being stoned, the same kind of being molested, the same kind of not having liberty, as Mary Magdalene did in her life. So what she's saying to us, who are women today in a part of the world where we have our freedom to move, to speak, to act, to break out of marriages, to choose not to have children, to do whatever we want. She's telling us that there is a part of us we have not accessed yet, and that we need to know of our own greatness, of our own divinity, of our own role in this game that is equal to the man's. She came down with him as his equal. She had to suffer from a kind of life that made her very different, as women has been suffering in that kind of condition for 2,000 years.
But was she supposed to be an equal at that time, as great as Jesus? Was that the purpose?
She, as a soul, was his other half.
Twin souls?
Yes. I don't know exactly what twin souls are, but let's use that, concept. They were part of the same soul, as an esoteric couple will be, because that is how we experience life on earth, either as a woman or as a man, but we contain both parts within. There's a feminine and a masculine part within us. In a couple, as a soul, we may have the other half with us or not. They went down as an esoteric couple, being these two parts of a soul, being representatives of the feminine and the masculine. So she is a representative of the feminine that historically was in a matriarchate. How do you say that? Matriarchate.
Patriarch.
No, prior to the patriarchal.
It's a difficult word for Norwegians.
Prior to the patriarchal world that we're living in, there was a matriarchal world, that may have karmically not recognized the role and the issue of men. And so we have this shift to a patriarchal world. Now we're at the state where if we've reached the heart level, we're beyond this part of the body, which is dominantly feminine, beyond the solar plexus, where we are in a combative, dualistic relationship with our fellow men. If we are able to work from the heart dimension, then there is also a possibility of us being equal to the others, that we are not neither dominating them or suppressing them or being suppressed by them. All this to say that what she's launching is the idea that if women now raise to their powers, they can be and act as the equal to men, so that we can come towards a different kind of human union and thereby change our future. If you reckon the goal of a human being to reach androgeneity, because that is the essence and the symbol of the completeness of a human being, that is the androgen state, where the female and the masculine is in complete balance, then that would be something, looked upon in the perspective of the whole of mankind. That would be where we need to go, where we need to need to aim at, what we need to go for. That would be inducing relationships that are not based on one part dominating the others, based on love relationships of equality, etc. So she's saying women are still haven't finished my task. We still haven't gotten there yet. That yes, there may be social equality, there has been women's lib, etc. But realizing oneself as a excuse me, as in contact with one's own divinity, being whole as a woman, that is something we have to strive for. That is when we can no longer be exploited or suppressed or dominated by anyone outside of us, just as a man shouldn't be.
Yes, and I noticed that it said in the book that we shouldn't just look for love, externally from a man, or become a mother because we want to take care of somebody, or we should have that love in ourselves to be able to stand alone if we want to. But does that mean that we need to actually have some of the masculine energy as well? Because I feel like, I have to be strong and alone, and that's kind of a more male aspect in a way.
Well, you do have a male aspect that can be weak or can be strong, can be dominant or non-dominant within you. So what you would seek for is the right balance within you, a right union of these parts within you, so that what we tend to see today is in fact that women tend to be very masculine in the way of organizing everything.
Right.
Kids, house, cars, job, everything. Almost so much that they hardly, again, they might not remember why they would need a companion, because they're anyway taking care of everything. That is not necessarily the aim. It's not that you would be self-sufficient in all parts of your life. The aim would be that your relationship to whoever was there with you would not be one of dependency, that you would not depend on that person for something, but that the relationship between you would be one of exchange of gifts rather than demands, so that we wouldn't have quarrels like, well, if you don't do that for me, I won't do that for you, because I wouldn't have the need that you did that for me. I would be able to look after myself, but I would be very enriched by knowing you. I would be very enriched by having you mirroring in me the man. If you're a man, then you would mirror the masculine part in me, and I would find out. I would have a way of knowing myself better.
But the men need women too. I mean, we both need each other.
Certainly.
But in the future, we are. It actually said in the book that in the future we will have different kinds of relationships. We will be more friends with each other, not being with one person your whole life necessarily.
She says something about that. She doesn't go into detail. She says we'll speak on that some other time, and that might be because we're not ready yet. But I think. Or it's not the main message, because before we get there, there might be this other work to be done or to complete or to... I don't think it is a work that hasn't started. We see that there are many women seeking their integrity, seeking their fulfillment, etc. So it's not something that hasn't started, but it is something that we should be aware of not having finished yet. And then I think... in the future, living the life of a whole person, you have less fear of the others. You will be more open to having yourself mirrored by the others. It could be that in this game of life being something you go through as a learning process, being mirrored by those around you, being mirrored by more people would be an advantage. That is something, one way of explaining why this could be productive. But it's not an encouragement for lots of loose relationships. She's also speaking very strongly on the fact that casual sex can be as devastating as directional sex can be constructive. So she's also much aware of the fact that we are vulnerable as people. And before we go into relationship with someone, we should know them as souls. This is also something so that we know each other as complete beings rather than whatever the physical relationship is able to convince you of. And so there are many aspects of this, and this is why obviously the book is quite thick too. She's looking at things from many points of view.
Yes, I find it a bit difficult, if I should talk about myself, how to find my femininity or my feminine energy, because I don't have children, I'm not married, and I feel very independent. So how would you advise me to research that within me, what she's saying? Like, what would I need to work on? What areas in my life would it be to speak up more about my opinions, or I can't quite grasp how to embrace this energy more.
I would say that you're doing a good job in the sense that some of the recipes she's giving us is cherish life in all this aspect. That is the essential part, the colorful part, whatever you can perceive of more love, more communication, more exchange with the others. And then one feminine aspect too would be to seek solutions that are not combative. It's not either or. It's going in between. It's interweaving. It's finding new ways of looking at things so that the solution would not be breaking something, but always building something, weaving something. It would entail much respect for other women, which in many cases are missing from relationships around the world. It would be encouraging all sisters, or all feminine aspects of all men. That is because we're not. We have to be together in this. And I'll finish one thought before I go on to the next one that came into mind. The one thought is what you're doing in your work right now is aimed at changing something in the world. You have given yourself a direction for this. And that is what she's asking. We can't leave things as they are. We have to use our femininity, our way of having female solutions to things, to make changes in the world. We have to do that work. And so you've probably been listening to her without knowing. That's one part. The other part is that we're not supposed to be so independent that we'll not cherish a meeting with a man or with men or with the other half. It is maybe a time where we're seeking to find out, and how would that relationship be? Because, in fact, when I am into my power, where do I place him? What do I use him for? And I think that is without falling into old mechanisms like losing oneself in love, falling into love, meaning losing a grip of one's own identity, integrity, etc. It's all to be explored for us today, I think. This is what we can have fun doing. We have to do this together with men too, but there are differences between us that should be respected. They should be regarded equal and not one more important than the others. Not in any environment, not in any context. But I think the fact that we are here now speaking about these things are part of making changes happen. And I think more women speaking up about what they know, what they see, what they are able to do, etc., is part of this movement that she's encouraging. She will say to anyone that you cannot do this alone. And she will say also that if you're not able to transform my suffering into something different, that is joy of life, that is pleasure from being here, pleasure from being in this complex world of forms where we have so many possibilities for experience. She's talking you out of depression because you need to have as many experiences as possible. be they good or bad. If they make you grow, they're good.
So where is she now? I need to understand that in a way, because I've just interviewed a couple of people who speak to people who have, gone over to the other side. Where does she reside? Is she in all of us, or is she one specific soul, or is she kind of an extraterrestrial, or?
She has been an incarnated being. So at the time, she was in a particular human being, but she was also what she would name a master before she came, as were all the disciples. Masters being those who have at a certain point reached a certain phase of evolution so that their energy field is larger and still awake. I'm not an expert on these things, so there might be teachers of esoteric knowledge that are much more into the technical details. What I tend to perceive is that there is a consciousness connected to her, as there is a consciousness connected to Jesus, that is not limited by any body or by any group of people, that will go to act where they can have access. And they are very important in our culture because of our history. We are, whether we want it or not, within a Christian culture. And so these will be actors or protagonists within our setting, our energies. So they are the ones who can somehow move us in a more spiritually enlightened direction. And in order to do that, they have to correct many of the religion's misunderstandings, twists and turns, manipulations, etc. So they, on the one hand, using channels all over the Christian world to correct an impression of our limitations as human beings. And then they obviously come through as energetic beings that, depending on your perception, you can see in this way or that way. I tend to not see them as much as I hear them, or as much as they can use my hand when I write. I sometimes write before I hear. Others will report of different encounters where they could come in for only one flash, but so strong once in their lives that would remain with them. In a way, I see these as entities, beings, consciousness, intelligences that does what it. They will do what it takes to reawaken. You can be different from what it takes to reawaken me. Obviously, me, they have to do a lot of talking with to have moving, whereas others may have been inspired by one event on a mountain in France or in a church somewhere, not related to religion, but to the presence of a love, of a light so strong that it makes them move differently in their lives. And that's the whole idea. The idea is to have us also, as far as I can understand it, be aware of how multidimensional we are too. You can go meet them in your dream and you may not even know about it the day after. If we wake up, that's the meaning of that word, to wake up larger parts of our consciousness, we would feel less separated from each other or from the rest of the world or from what we tend to think of as heaven, which is a very much inhabited part of the universe. And so we would have more interesting lives. We would not easily fall into depression or whatever, because there would be too much to be a part of. And that is the basic reason for giving us all these messages, these reasons for researching into things, so that we don't sit down and think, well, this is it, this is what we have, and we can do nothing about it. And this powerlessness is maybe her strongest. That is part of what I feel the strongest about her message. If you believe yourself to be powerless, then you
are.
Then you are. Then you can change nothing, and it will be exactly what it is.
Because we are gods, or we have divinity in us. It's not exterior, it's interior.
Divinity is both outside and inside. She refers to both, but she refers to feminine divinities too, and to a long tradition of feminine divinities to identify with. And in fact, she's also portraying through this story a myth that is much older than her story, that is that of the goddess in the underworld, this of having to undress all the way into the very naked soul and then come up again in another form, which is somehow portraying, I think, this voyage or journey that we're doing that we have been doing over these past some 2,000-3,000 years as a female collective. We're about to come up again in another place, and we have to shine differently, and we have to know more about ourselves as being divine, because we've lost somehow the connection to our upper part, and we've somehow lost the connection to our lower part, which is nature. We're in that. We should be bridges between the world of the natural world on this earth and the divine world of this earth, and that is what we have to recover.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your attention and inspirational presence.
I mean, this was really inspiring, and although I feel like it's hard to understand or explain with words, it resonates with me because I think women have this deep down in us, a need or a feeling that there is something that should come out more in a way. And so when I'm reading this and hearing this, it really is a good feeling that it gives some sort of a allowance to do it, to be like, yes, let's do it. And that's very inspirational. This book has been translated into English. Do you think it will be published anytime soon?
Let's see.
I hope so. I hope so for you guys as well. Is there anything you want to say in the end?
That we can change things. I think this is my main reason for being here, this conviction that the world does not have to look in the future as it does now, and that we have to work in the physical. That change means acting, choosing to do things differently, and with the powers that we have within, if we are able to access them, that is what we can do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, guys. Much light from Oslo. Bye-bye.